The Mariah's house always seemed the same, silent, meticulously organized, and filled with portraits that told a story of perfection. But beneath the veneer of order, there was a constant echo of things unsaid. Anna walked the hallways as if stepping on invisible shards, trying not to make a sound, trying not to be noticed too much. Since childhood, she had learned that silence was the best way to survive. Her twin sister, Julia, was the opposite. Where Anna retreated, Julia advanced. Where Anna remained silent, Julia shouted. They grew up side by side, identical in appearance, but so different it seemed impossible they could have shared the same womb. Julia had always been the light, the one who enchanted, the one who was noticed, the one who spoke her mind without considering the consequences. Anna was the discreet shadow that held everything together unseen. That morning, the mirror reflected both of them, but the resemblance ended superficially. Julia combed her hair disdainfully, casting provocative glances at her sister. Anna, for her part, observed her own reflection with the uncomfortable feeling that her face held more secrets than it should. Ever since she had discovered the truth about her mother, life had become an exercise in deception. Helena, her mother, always represented the image of the perfect woman, elegant, charitable, and devoted to her family. But Anna knew that behind the facade lay another woman, one who loved a forbidden love and hid the fruit of that love in silence. Knowing this was like carrying a time bomb in her chest, and her mother's every gesture, every false compliment was a cruel reminder of the weight she carried alone. Julia sensed her sister's distance and impulsively tried to break down the barriers Anna had erected. "You're so trapped inside yourself, Anna," she said, half laughing, half complaining. But Anna only smiled, the empty smile of someone afraid to say anything. There were things she could never tell, or so she believed. Gradually, the days became a sequence of repetitive gestures. Breakfast in silence, the sound of cutlery, trivial conversations that avoided touching on the essential. Their father, Eduardo, spent most of his time away, and the house seemed to revolve around Helena and her demands. Julia, impatient, talked about leaving home. Anna, on the other hand, clung to her routine as if it were her last protection. But there was something in her mother's gaze that was beginning to change, a subtle discomfort, a suspicion. It was as if Helena sensed something was wrong. Anna felt the weight of that gaze, and with each passing day, the fear of being discovered grew. Even when everything seemed normal, she lived with the feeling that at any moment, someone would force her secret away. One night, when Anna found an old box in her parents' room, she nearly collapsed. Inside were old photos, and one in particular showed Helena with an unknown man, smiling differently.
The kind of smile you have not out of obligation, but out of love. Anna put the photo in her pocket, her heart pounding as if she'd committed a crime. Seeing her trembling, Julia tried to extract the reason from her. Anna, cornered, denied it. She said it was just fatigue. But Julia didn't believe her. She knew something was hidden, and curiosity, instead of fear, awakened a spark of power within her. At that moment, standing in the mirror, Anna realized that the reflection she saw wasn't just hers, it was the reflection of everything that was about to collapse. If you also believe that every family keeps a secret and that some of them can change everything, subscribe to the channel now. Here, each story will prove to you that love and pain often live in the same house. Activate the bell and prepare to feel. The following days were strangely silent. Julia watched Anna with the insistence of someone waiting for someone else to stumble. There was something in her sister's eyes that mixed compassion and distrust. Anna, in turn, had become more distant, as if speaking only as necessary to maintain the fragile balance of the household. But the silence, instead of protecting, began to suffocate. Over coffee, Helena praised Julia for her new job and completely ignored Anna. It was always like that, the perfect twin against the dull shadow. Anna pretended not to care, but Julia could see the discomfort etched on her sister's face. "You should assert yourself more," she teased with a sharp smile. But Anna knew that asserting herself in that house was the same as declaring war. One afternoon, while organizing the attic, Anna found an old diary of Helena's. The pages were yellowed, but one sentence written in red ink stopped her in her tracks. "Some loves must die so that others can live." The diary mentioned a man named Augusto, the same man from the photos Anna had hidden. It was confirmation of the betrayal she had always suspected. Anna slammed the diary shut and hid it back, trembling. She felt the weight of the information grow, pressing down on her chest. It wasn't just a secret. It was an open wound she carried for her mother, a pain that wasn't hers but lived inside her. That night she couldn't sleep. The words "forbidden love" echoed in her head like an ancient spell. Julia noticed the change. "You're acting strange," she said, her tone a mix of affection and distrust. Anna wanted to respond, but the words stuck in her throat. Deep down, she wanted to trust. She wanted to share the burden with someone. And Julia, imperfect as she was her other half.
The dilemma grew like a shadow. During dinner, Anna could barely look at her mother. Julia, attentive, watched every gesture, every breath. He seemed to know something big was about to happen. Later, locked in her room, Anna wept softly. It wasn't just fear, it was exhaustion. The secret was eroding everything. Her relationship with her mother, her balance with Julia, her very identity. She felt like she was becoming a stranger in her own skin. So when Julia entered the room and asked, for the last time, what was happening, Anna gave in. She told her everything. She told her about the diary, the man, the forbidden love, and the lie that sustained her parents' marriage. She cried as she confessed, feeling a momentary sense of relief. But as she spoke, Julia watched her silently. And in that silence, there was something Anna didn't immediately understand. Something cold, calculated, that would turn her confession into a weapon. The next morning seemed ordinary, but Anna woke with a knot in her stomach. The feeling of having shared her secret was bittersweet. Lightness and fear mingled like poison diluted in honey. Julia, on the other hand, was calmer than usual. She prepared coffee, singing softly, as if nothing had happened. This reassured and, at the same time, disconcerted Anna. Over coffee, Helena mentioned a family gathering that weekend. She spoke proudly of her father, his career, his surname, and Anna filled every word like a needle. Julia just watched, an enigmatic glint in her eye. "It'll be good, Mom," she said, with a smile Anna couldn't quite interpret. For a moment, she feared she'd made a mistake. In the days that followed, Anna tried to convince herself that Julia would keep the secret. After all, they were twins, two halves of the same mirror. But little by little, she began to notice small changes. Julia asked subtle questions, testing reactions. She spoke of truth, liberation, justice, words that, spoken by her, sounded dangerously sharp. One night, Anna heard Julia on the phone. The voices were low, but the name Helena rang out clearly. Anna's heart raced. She wanted to confront her sister, but she backed away. She preferred to believe it was paranoia. Trust, she thought, was the last link between them. If she doubted it, what would remain? Tension rose like a tide. Helena seemed restless, as if sensing something. Eduardo, her father, immersed in work, pretended not to notice. The house began to vibrate with an eerie silence, as if everyone was waiting for an inevitable explosion. Anna tried to smile, but felt the guilt with every breath. Julia, on the other hand, was closer to her mother than ever. She gave compliments, helped with chores, was sweet and attentive.
everything Anna had never been able to be. But Anna saw beyond the gesture. Julia was laying the groundwork. It was the kind of calm that precedes the storm.
One night, before family dinner, Anna found her in her room, staring out the window. "You still trust me, don't you?" Julia asked, without turning her head. The question disarmed her. Anna hesitated, but then replied, "Of course." The word came out weakly, and they both felt the echo of a lie. When Julia turned around, there was something in her eyes, a mixture of hurt and determination. Sometimes, Anna, keeping secrets is what destroys people. Maybe it's time to end it. Her voice was calm, but the threat was there, hidden beneath the serene tone. Anna felt the ground disappear beneath her feet. That night, as Anna lay in bed, she knew nothing would be the same after dinner. What she hadn't imagined was the extent of the ruin that trust could cause. Saturday arrived shrouded in a strange tranquility. The table was carefully set, the smell of home-cooked food filled the air, and Helena looked radiant, pleased to bring everyone together. Julia wore a red dress, provocative, vibrant, almost defiant. Anna, on the other hand, chose white, trying to appear calm, trying to convince herself that everything would be fine. Dinner began with restrained laughter and old stories. Helena talked about her youth, Eduardo responded with tired smiles, and Julia, as always, was the center of attention. Anna felt out of place, a piece off the board. He watched his father drink in silence and his mother smile with practiced falseness. Every gesture seemed staged. Suddenly, Julia put down her cutlery and looked directly at her mother. "You know, Mom, it's funny how families live on appearances, isn't it?" she said with a cold smile. The air grew heavy. Helena stopped breathing for a second. Anna tried to intervene, but her words tumbled out. Julia spoke firmly, without hesitation, explaining everything Anna had told her. Each sentence was a blow, each memory a shard of glass piercing her sister's heart. Helena turned to Anna with a devastating look. "You told her?" Anna cried, denying it, trying to explain, "I just wanted to share the burden." But no one listened to her anymore. Julia became the dominant voice in the room, the bearer of truth. Helena applauded desperately, laughing nervously. Eduardo left the room in silence. The family that had always lived on appearances was beginning to crumble before everyone's eyes. When the commotion subsided, Anna was left alone. The table still held untouched plates, spilled wine, and the echo of words that could never be taken back. Julia watched her from afar, her eyes teary but unrepentant. In that moment, Anna realized that her sister had not only betrayed her trust, she had destroyed the only thing that had held them together, the silent love between two halves that were now irreconcilable. The next day dawned heavy, as if even the sky had absorbed the weight of what had happened. The Marias house, once so imposing, now seemed smaller, dark, too silent. Anna woke with puffy eyes and a weary soul. The memory of dinner returned in painful fragments. Her mother's screams, Julia's cold gaze, the sound of the glass breaking. Nothing seemed real anymore. Helena spent the morning locked in her room, refusing to speak to anyone. Edward didn't return home that night. Julia tried to act as if nothing had happened, but the atmosphere was impossible to ignore. The sound of footsteps echoed through the hallways like reminders of what had broken. Anna wandered the house, touching the furniture as if it might offer some solace. In the mirror, the reflection that had once seemed familiar was now that of a stranger. She no longer saw the obedient daughter, the calm sister, the invisible woman. She saw a traitor, even if she hadn't meant to. The shame was suffocating. "I just trusted," she repeated to herself, as if she could justify the catastrophe that trust had caused. That afternoon, Julia found her in the kitchen, standing there, exhausted. "You don't understand, Anna. Someone had to tell the truth." Her voice was firm, almost defensive. Anna looked up, her eyes red. "And did it have to be you? Did it have to destroy everything?" Julia looked away. "The lie was already destroying. I just ripped off the veil." The silence between them weighed heavily. The clock ticked away every second as a cruel reminder of what could not be undone. Anna felt the urge to scream, to cry, to break something, but she just stood there, motionless. "You don't know what it's like to carry the weight of a secret that isn't yours," she murmured. Julia replied bitterly, "And you don't know what it's like to live a lie that never included you." That night, Helena left the room. Her face was pale, aged. "You two destroyed this house," she said quietly, without looking at either of them. Anna tried to get closer, but her mother backed away. "Don't you dare touch me!" The words were silent stabs. The distance between mother and daughter became an abyss. Eduardo returned late, smelling of alcohol and regret. He said nothing. He simply walked upstairs without looking at anyone. The sound of his footsteps was the last thing heard before the silence fell.
In the following days, the routine fell apart. No one spoke, no one ate together. Julia spent her nights locked in her room, crying softly. Anna wandered the rooms like a ghost of flesh and blood. Helena avoided seeing her daughters. The home that had once held up appearances was now visibly crumbling, and each brick fell on Anna's shoulders. At a certain point, standing at the window, Anna realized nothing could be rebuilt the same way again. The house, the family, the relationships, everything was broken. And deep down, perhaps this ruin was the only possible path to the truth. The following weeks were a succession of cloudy days. Anna no longer knew when she had ceased to exist within her own home. She slept little, ate less, and was tormented by memories of dinner. Her mother's gaze still haunted her, cold and judgmental. Julia tried to justify herself, but each word only deepened the rift between them. One morning, Anna awoke to the sound of rain pounding against the window. She went downstairs and found the living room empty, the family photos face down. Helena, in a symbolic and cruel gesture, had erased her daughter's visual memories. The pain was immediate, physical. Anna fell to her knees, clutching one of the broken frames. It was as if the world were saying, "You don't belong here anymore." Julia appeared in the doorway, hesitant. "Mother won't forgive you anytime soon," she said, her tone almost guiltily. Anna looked up, her eyes brimming with tears. "And you? Do you forgive yourself for what you did?" Julia didn't answer. She just turned and left, leaving behind the hollow sound of regret she couldn't yet admit. Guilt was a constant presence. Anna tried to write, read, occupy her mind, but everything kept coming back to the same thing: broken trust. Sometimes she thought about leaving, running away and starting over, but something held her back. Maybe it was the unhealthy love for that house, for those people, or maybe it was the fear of disappearing completely. One night, rummaging through an old drawer, Anna found a yellowed letter addressed to her father. The handwriting was her mother's. "Forgive me for making you believe it's all over," it began. There was something more, but the words were faded. This rekindled a flame of doubt. Perhaps the secret wasn't just what she thought. The next day, she went to her father's office, seeking answers. Eduardo was sitting, dejected, surrounded by bottles. "Dad, what really happened between you and Mom?" he asked,
her voice trembling. He looked at her for a long time before replying. Not everything your mother hid was out of guilt. Sometimes hiding is the only way to protect yourself. Those words echoed in Anna's mind all day. Protection. Maybe Julia believed that too when she revealed everything. Maybe they were all trying to protect themselves from something bigger, something that hadn't yet surfaced. That night, Anna wrote in the diary she kept hidden, "Truth is a weight that changes hands. Now it's my turn to carry what's left."
As she closed her notebook, she heard a noise in the hallway. It was Julia, standing in front of the door, her face wet with tears. "Anna, I need to tell you something you don't know yet." The silence that followed was the harbinger of a new revelation, and the echo of guilt continued to grow like thunder about to break the sky. Anna stared at Julia as if staring into a cracked mirror. Her sister's tears flowed silently, but her gaze held something different, a genuine, almost childlike fear. "There's more, Anna," Julia said hesitantly. "What I told you at dinner wasn't everything. I discovered something you don't know." The words hung in the air, heavy, dark. Anna felt her heart race, her body freeze. The two of them sat on the bed. The rain fell outside, as if the whole world were listening in silence. Julia took a deep breath before continuing. "Mom didn't cheat just once. Augusto wasn't just a lover. He was someone who was part of our lives, someone you knew." Anna frowned. "What are you talking about?" Julia lowered her gaze. "Remember Uncle Augusto, Dad's friend?" The name sounded like a punch. Anna jumped to her feet, trying to deny it. "It can't be. He was family. He came here when we were little." Julia nodded, crying. "He was more than that. He was the man Mom truly loved, and the son she hid wasn't just his." Anna felt the ground disappear. "You mean—" Julia just nodded. The world seemed to spin. Childhood memories came back in flashes. The loving uncle, the gifts, the hugs that went too long, the looks he and his mother exchanged. Everything began to make sense, a horrible, devastating sense. Anna staggered, leaning against the wall, feeling the weight of the revelation sink into her bones. "I found out weeks ago," Julia continued, her voice breaking. "I found a letter from him to Mom, hidden inside an old book. She said she couldn't stand living the lie anymore, that the father of one of us wasn't Eduardo." Anna covered her mouth, trying to stifle a scream. "One of us?" he repeated, his voice trembling. Julia didn't answer. She just let the tears fall. "I don't know which of us, Anna, and that's what kills me the most." The sentence echoed between the walls, turning the silence into something unbearable. Anna felt dizzy. The secret she thought she knew was only the surface of something much deeper, a wound buried in the family's blood. The two of them stood there, unsure of what to say. Julia hesitantly extended her hand, and Anna, after a few seconds, took it. For the first time since dinner, something was uniting them again, the fear of the truth. But deep down, Anna felt something new, a flame of need. She needed to know. She needed to find out who was her legitimate daughter and who wasn't. And in the reflection of the window, the raindrops looked like eyes, watching, judging, waiting for the next move.
The next day, Anna woke with her mind racing. The weight of the new secret burned like fire. She could no longer distinguish anger from fear, love from despair. Julia had left early, without saying where she was going. Helena and Eduardo remained distant, trapped in their own silences. The house felt like a tomb of cursed truths. Determined to uncover the truth, Anna went to her parents' room. She rummaged through drawers, boxes, and old books. Nothing. Until, deep in a forgotten trunk, she found a folder tied with a red ribbon. Inside were letters exchanged between Helena and Augusto. Each was a fragment of a forbidden story, an intense, hidden, impossible love. But one of the letters caught his eye. It was torn and stained, but one sentence stood out. If he finds out that one of the twins is mine, everything will be lost. Anna's blood ran cold. Her hands trembled as she reread the sentence over and over, trying to deny the obvious. One of them was another man's daughter, and no one had ever said so. At that very moment, the sound of the door making her jump. It was Julia. Her gaze fell on the paper in her sister's hands, and despair spread across her face. "You shouldn't have read that," she said, approaching. Anna, distraught, replied, "Why? You already knew, didn't you? You knew, and you let me think the secret was mine." Julia cried, "I didn't know what to do. I wanted to protect you, protect us." Anna laughed bitterly. "Protect? You destroyed everything, Julia, everything." The two began to argue, their voices echoing through the empty house. It was the kind of fight that has no winners, only wounds. Amid the confusion, Helena appeared at the door. Her face was pale, but her gaze was firm. "Stop it," she said coldly. The two fell silent. "Since you found what you shouldn't have, I'll say it myself. Yes, it's true. One of you isn't Eduardo's daughter, but I won't say which one." The silence that followed was deafening. Julia broke down, crying. Anna, motionless, simply watched her mother, as if looking at a stranger. "You've lied your whole life," she whispered. Helena replied calmly, "Lying was the only way to keep you together, and now you've proven me wrong." Helena turned and left, leaving her daughters paralyzed. The house, once again, fell silent. But now the silence was crueler because it was accompanied by the most bitter doubt two sisters could carry. Which of them belonged to this family? And when the clock struck midnight, Anna realized she hadn't slept a single second. Outside, the wind whispered through the trees, and in the whisper there seemed to be a single word: blame. Anna spent the next few days in a state of torpor. She barely ate, barely slept, but she thought constantly. Every childhood memory seemed charged with new meaning. Julia, on the other hand, immersed herself in a desperate attempt to uncover the truth on her own. The house had become a field of investigation and distrust, where love had turned into suspicion.
One morning, Anna saw Julia rummaging through her father's office. "What are you doing?" she asked coldly. Julia answered without hesitation, "Looking for the truth. If Mom won't tell, someone has to." Anna sighed. "And what changes, Julia? If it's you or me, nothing will bring back what we lost." But deep down, Anna knew she needed to know. Doubt was a poison that seeped into everything. The two began working together, albeit with a silent resentment. They sifted through documents, old photos, diaries. Each discovery seemed to push them deeper into a labyrinth of secrets. In one of the folders, they found a letter from Augusto addressed to Eduardo. "You are not the only one with rights over this family," the central sentence read. Julia read it aloud, her tone trembling with disbelief. That night, Anna confronted her father. Eduardo was in his office, exhausted, his gaze lost. "Father, please tell me the truth. Who are we?" He was silent for a long time, his eyes fixed on an antique frame on the desk. Finally, he murmured, "You are my daughters, Anna, even if the blood says otherwise." His words were like a blow. "Even if the blood?" Anna repeated, feeling a shiver. "So it's true." Eduardo stood, his shoulders slumped. Your mother made mistakes, but I accepted them. Not out of forgiveness, but out of cowardice. I was afraid of losing them. His sincerity hurt more than any lie. Julia appeared in the doorway, listening to everything. "So you knew?" she asked, her voice trembling. Her father tried to approach, but Julia backed away. "The truth always destroys the weak, Julia, and our family was never strong enough." The sentence echoed through the house, cold and bitter. Anna, unable to hold back her tears, ran away, leaving behind the image of a man she loved too much to be honest. That night she wrote in her diary, "Discovering the truth is easy. Surviving it is what kills us." Helena spent the next few days like a shadow. She no longer dressed up, no longer ruled the house with her former authority. She looked like a dethroned queen, trapped in her own castle of lies. Anna watched from afar, somewhere between anger and compassion. Julia, however, couldn't hide her contempt. "She destroyed everything. Why do you still feel sorry for her?" she asked. Anna replied calmly, "Because she's still our mother, even if it hurts." Determined to face what remained, Anna knocked on Helena's bedroom door. The room was dark, the air heavy with incense and memories. "Mom, we need to talk." Helena didn't answer. She just looked at her daughter, her eyes red, her face etched with exhaustion. "Did you come to blame me too?" she asked bitterly. "No, I came to try to understand."
The silence between them was thick. Anna sat on the edge of the bed. "Why hide everything, Mom? Why make us live this lie?" Helena took a deep breath before answering. "Because the truth doesn't save anyone, Anna. The truth destroys. I just wanted to protect you. From the world, from myself, from Augusto, from everything." Anna watched her silently. "But protecting someone through lies isn't love, Mother. It's fear." Helena turned her face away, a tear escaping. "I could never choose. Between the man I loved and the family I built, I lost them both." There was genuine pain in her voice, but also a cruel resignation, like someone who had already accepted her own punishment. Just then, Julia entered the room. "You say you lost, but we were the ones who lost. You lied to us, to him, to everyone." Her mother looked up, and for the first time, she looked fragile. "I did what I thought was right." Julia smiled bitterly. "You always think you're right, Mom. You always have." The argument intensified. Julia accused, Helena cried, and Anna in the middle tried to contain the storm. "Enough!" Anna shouted. "Enough, please!" They both fell silent, surprised by their daughter's outburst, who always remained silent. "We've already lost everything. Continuing to fight will only dig the hole deeper." Helena looked at Anna with sad tenderness. "You're the only one who understands, even without forgiving." But then with a distant look, she murmured, "There's something you still don't know. Something even I couldn't erase." Julia frowned. "What else could there be, Mother?" Helena sighed, her hands trembling. "Augusto didn't leave by choice. He was forced to disappear." Anna and Julia looked at each other, fear growing. "Who forced him?" Anna asked, her voice almost broken. Her mother replied softly, "The man you call father." The world seemed to stop, and in that instant, Eduardo's silent, resigned figure took on a new face, that of a man who also had his secrets. Helena's confession echoed through the house like thunder. Anna and Julia stood still, trying to process what they had just heard. "His father?" Anna repeated in disbelief. Helena lowered her gaze. "He found out about Augusto and made him disappear." Her voice was barely above a whisper, but the impact was devastating. Julia took a step back, her eyes wide. "Are you saying he killed Augusto?" Helena brought her hands to her face. "I never knew exactly what happened. I only know that after that night, Augusto was never seen again, and his father, returned home as if nothing had happened. Anna felt the ground disappear. The secret that had destroyed the family was just the tip of the iceberg.
The silence that followed was dense, deadly. Julia trembled. "You've been silent all this time?" she cried, tears streaming down her face. "You let him raise us with blood on his hands." Helena replied, her voice trembling. "I tried to protect you. If he did what I think, it was for you." The words sounded hollow, unjustifiable. Anna stood up, unsteady. "Protecting isn't lying, Mother. It's not letting the pain grow." She ran from the room, panting. Julia stood there, looking at Elena with anger and compassion at the same time. "You destroyed everything you touched," she said before leaving. Elena was left alone, surrounded by portraits that now seemed to mock her. Anna went to her father's office. Eduardo was there, writing something, his expression cold. "Mother told us everything," she said without preamble. His father didn't react. "Everything what?" he asked without looking up. "About Augusto. About what you did." He slowly put down his pen and looked at his daughter. "Sometimes, Anna, justice doesn't come from the courts." She stepped closer, frightened. "Did you really do that, Father?" Eduardo sighed. "I only did what was necessary." His voice was calm, but there was a terrifying emptiness there. "He wasn't a good man, Anna. You wouldn't understand." Anna wept. "Did you hear yourself? You're saying you killed someone to keep a lie alive." Eduardo closed his eyes wearily. "No, I did it to keep you alive." She recoiled, horrified. "We're not alive, Dad. We're trapped." And she walked out, leaving him alone with his guilt. That night, Julia went to her sister's room. "He admitted it?" he asked. Anna nodded, exhausted. "Yes, and you still think you did the right thing?" Julia sat beside her, silent. "Maybe the worst part isn't what he did, but what it did to us." The two of them stood there, holding hands, united not by blood, but by shared trauma. And for the first time in a long time, Anna cried without fear, because now she knew the truth wasn't salvation, it was a sentence. The following days were marked by absolute silence. Neither of them spoke to each other. Eduardo locked himself in his office, Elena barely left her room, and the sisters wandered the house like ghosts. The air was thick with regret and shame. Anna tried to write, but the words escaped her. Julia drank in secret, trying to drown the weight of her guilt. One afternoon, Anna found an old photo of the two of them as little girls, dressed alike, smiling. She remembered when she believed nothing could separate them. Now they could barely look at each other without seeing the reflection of the destruction they had caused. Still, something inside her whispered that she couldn't leave her alone. He decided to write a letter. He spent the night awake, each word a confession. "Julia, you hurt me more than anyone, but even so, I still love you, because without you, I don't exist." He folded the paper and left it on his sister's bedroom doorstep before going out for a walk. When she returned, she found Julia sitting on the stairs, the letter in her hands, her eyes swollen. "I don't deserve this," she said, crying. "I just wish it would all stop hurting." Anna sat beside her. "The pain doesn't stop, Julia. We just learn to live with it." They stayed there, without saying anything else, just breathing together. In the days that followed, they began to rebuild something. Small, fragile, but real. Julia avoided talking about her father, and Anna respected the silence. The two found a kind of truce, even if it was surrounded by scars.
Sometimes that was all that remained after the war. One morning, Julia decided to visit Helena. The two stood face to face, their encounter fraught with all that had been lost. "I hate you for lying," Julia said, her voice breaking. "But I hate even more how much I wanted to love you again." Helena, crying, simply replied, "Love is what remains when the truth is gone." That night, Anna wrote in her diary, "The lie divided us, the truth shattered us, and forgiveness may never come." As she wrote, she heard footsteps in the hallway. It was Julia, standing in the doorway. "Can I sleep here?" she asked, like when they were children. Anna nodded. Julia lay down beside her, and for a few minutes the silence felt peaceful. But as she turned out the light, Anna noticed something different in her sister's face, an uneasiness, a new secret hidden behind her eyes, something still unsaid, something that, as always, could change everything again. The dawn seemed colder than usual. Fog covered the Morais garden like a blanket of oblivion. Anna woke with a decision etched in her mind like a hot iron. She had to leave. The house was saturated with memories, lies, voices that echoed even in the silence. To stay there was to remain trapped in a cycle that would never end. She gathered a few things: the diary, some clothes, the photo of the two girls wearing matching dresses. As she descended the stairs, the sound of the wood creaking beneath her feet felt like a goodbye. Helena was waiting for her in the living room, sitting on the sofa, her face pale. "Are you really going?" she asked, her voice hoarse. I nodded. "I can't live here anymore, Mom. I need to breathe." Her mother held her daughter's hand, her eyes welling up. "I know I made a mistake, but everything I did was for you. And that's precisely why I need to go, because living within your mistakes has turned me into someone I no longer recognize." Her mother lowered her gaze, unable to argue. When Julia appeared on the stairs, still in her pajamas, she understood without words. "Are you leaving?" she asked, trying to hide her despair. "Yes," Anna smiled sadly, "but you know where to find me, and whenever you want, I'll come back for you." Julia simply nodded, tears streaming silently. Her father appeared at the office door, his expression haggard, the look of someone carrying centuries of guilt. "Anna," he began, but she interrupted him. "No, Dad, you don't have to. I understand, and maybe one day I'll be able to forgive." He didn't answer. He just nodded, resigned, knowing that forgiveness was a luxury he didn't deserve. Before leaving, Anna left a letter on the living room table. "Sometimes love dies when you try to save it." Those were the only words written. She opened the door and breathed in the cold air as if born again. The road ahead seemed long and unfamiliar, but for once it didn't hurt. As she walked, she heard the window open behind her. Julia watched her, crying, waving from afar. Anna smiled, a small but sincere smile. "One day we'll meet again," she murmured. And without looking back, she walked on. The wind carried away the last whisper of the house, a mixture of pain and liberation, the kind of silence that only exists when the truth has done all it can do. Months passed. Anna now lived in a small rural town, in a simple house surrounded by trees and silence. He worked at a local library, a refuge for those who needed stories other than their own. Time slowly began to soften the memories, but the emotional scar remained. Sometimes she would wake in the middle of the night to the sound of her mother's voice calling her name, or to Julia's distant laughter. But when she opened her eyes, she saw only the darkness and emptiness of the room. The past seemed to beckon her, trying to remind her that there was still something unfinished. One afternoon, she received a letter. The envelope was in Julia's handwriting. Anna's hand trembled as she opened it. "Mom got worse. She's asking about you. She said she needs to tell you something she hasn't told anyone else yet." Anna's heart raced. For a moment, she considered tearing up the letter, letting the past die in peace. But curiosity, or perhaps love, got the better of her. Days later, she was back in town. The house seemed smaller, sadder, the garden neglected, the windows covered in dust. Julia welcomed her with a hug that mingled regret and relief. "She's in there," she said. "Some days she talks nonsense, but today she seems lucid." Helena lay there, pale, her eyes sunken. When she saw Anna, she smiled with effort. "You came." Anna held her hand, cold and light. "I came, Mom. You wanted to see me." Helena took a deep breath. "There's something I haven't told you, something that could change everything." Anna felt her body go cold. "What is it?" Her mother looked at her with tenderness and sadness. "Augusto wasn't the father of one of you. He was the father of both of you." The world seemed to stop. Julia, who had heard from the doorway, put her hand to her mouth in shock. "But how?" Helena closed her eyes. "You were born from a mistake, but you were the only good thing in my life."
Anna wept, unable to speak. Everything she had believed, everything she had hated and forgiven, changed meaning in that instant. The lie transformed into a new truth, and blood, once a divider, became a bond. Helena passed away that night, her daughter's hands clasped together on the bed. And in the silence that followed, Anna and Julia embraced, as if they finally understood that love doesn't depend on origin, but on shared pain. Days later, while packing up their last souvenirs, Julia found a new letter, written by her mother. "Don't let the truth tear you apart again." Anna kept the paper close to her heart, and, as he closed the front door, he whispered, "I promise, Mom." Time passed slowly after Helena's death. Anna and Julia moved to different cities, trying to rebuild lives that had never truly begun. For months they exchanged few, short, formal messages. Each tried to heal in their own way. Anna immersed herself in work. Julia sought therapy and took long trips. They seemed to be walking far apart, and yet connected by an invisible thread. One gray autumn morning, Anna received a letter. The envelope, simple, bore her name in familiar handwriting. It was from Julia. Her heart raced. There was something in the writing that conveyed urgency, a kind of suppressed trembling. She sat on the porch, the cold wind rushing through her, and carefully opened the envelope. "Anna, if you're reading this, it's because I finally found what Mom tried to hide until the end." The first sentence took her breath away. Anna continued, her eyes running over the lines with fear and fascination. "Augusto didn't die that night. He was secretly committed by our father. Mother knew, but promised to remain silent in exchange for our safety. I found the records and a letter he wrote addressed to us." The paper trembled in Anna's hands. "He said he loved us, but could never get close. He said he watched us grow up from afar, and that the real mistake wasn't loving us, but remaining silent. He died 5 years ago." Anna choked back a sob. The breeze carried the distant scent of rain, and the sound of rustling leaves seemed to echo the rapid beating of her heart. "I don't know what to do with this," Julia continued on paper. "Part of me wants to leave the past where it is, but another part
wants the world to know who he was. I want our story to have a true ending, not a silent one." Anna felt the weight of the words, the same dilemma that had always accompanied them. Tell or hide, destroy or preserve. At the end of the letter, Julia had written, "If you want to see me, I'll be at the old house tomorrow evening. There's something else you need to know." The handwriting ended abruptly, as if interrupted.
No signature, just a smear of ink.
Anna spent the rest of the day in silence, her gaze lost on the horizon. The thought of returning to that house was suffocating, but something inside her knew she had to go. There were questions only time could answer, and truths that, even when painful, refused to rest. As the sun began to set, she grabbed her coat and left, without leaving a note, without saying goodbye. The road leading to the old house looked different, darker, covered in dry leaves. In the distance, the silhouette of the house waited, still, like a ghost of everything that had been. The gate creaked open. In the courtyard, only the sound of the wind. Anna called her sister's name, but there was no answer. The letter was still in her hands, crumpled, damp with sweat. She climbed the porch steps, her heart pounding. And on the door, fastened with a rusty nail, was a fresh sheet of paper. She read with tears in her eyes. "Anna, I was right. He's still here." The breeze blew stronger, causing the door to creak open on its own. Anna took a step inside, and the darkness received her, silent and alive. Every family has truths they would rather hide, but some need to be told. If this story touched you, if you felt the weight of silence, guilt, or forgiveness, subscribe now and stay with us, because here each story reveals what the heart tries to forget. Click subscribe and come find out what comes after the truth.